Listen up. Respect isn't something you ask for, it's something you command. And when it comes to men, it's not about looks, charm, or playing games. It's about how you carry yourself, the boundaries you set, and the standards you refuse to compromise on. Today, I'm breaking down the 4 rules that make men not just notice you, but deeply respect you. And once you master these, the dynamic in every relationship you have will change forever. When it comes to earning respect, nothing speaks louder than the boundaries you set and the discipline with which you hold to them. Boundaries are not walls, they are markers of value, lines that communicate to the world how you expect to be treated. The truth is, people, men especially, take cues from how you carry yourself and how consistently you enforce your standards. If you do not make those standards clear, if you waver or compromise every time someone pushes against them, you teach others that you can be disregarded. Setting boundaries and refusing to apologize for them is not about being harsh, cold, or difficult. It is about self-respect, and self-respect is the foundation upon which all other respect is built. Imagine walking into a room where everyone knows you as someone who will bend to accommodate every request, someone who avoids confrontation at any cost. What happens? People take advantage. They pile responsibilities onto you, dismiss your opinions, and expect you to tolerate whatever behavior they throw your way. Now picture walking into the same room, but this time you've made it clear that there are lines that cannot be crossed, whether it's your time, your energy, or your values. Suddenly, the dynamic changes. People think twice before making unreasonable demands. They listen more carefully when you speak, and they treat you with a level of seriousness they never did before. That shift does not come from them. It comes from you and the strength of your boundaries. Many women are conditioned to believe that saying no is selfish, that drawing a line makes them unkind or unapproachable. The reality is exactly the opposite. When you fail to set boundaries, resentment builds, frustration simmers, and eventually, the relationships you hope to preserve end up broken. Boundaries create clarity. They let others know exactly where they stand, what is acceptable, and what will not be tolerated. In fact, men often respect women more when they are firm and consistent with their standards, because it signals strength, confidence, and self-awareness. Weakness, in contrast, is communicated by endless compromise, by tolerating behavior that undermines your dignity, or by constantly apologizing for simply existing with needs and expectations of your own. Think of boundaries like training people how to treat you. If someone interrupts you constantly in a conversation and you let it slide, you've trained them that your voice doesn't matter. If someone shows up late repeatedly and you excuse it every time, you've trained them that your time has little value. But when you calmly stop the interruption and reclaim your voice, or when you refuse to wait endlessly for someone who doesn't respect your schedule, you've trained them to take you seriously. Boundaries are not enforced with anger or aggression. They are enforced with calm, unwavering consistency. It's not about raising your voice, it's about raising your standards and sticking to them, no matter who challenges them. This is where the never apologize part comes in. Too often, women soften their boundaries by adding unnecessary apologies. I'm sorry, but I can't make it. I'm sorry, but I need some time for myself. Every time you attach an apology to your boundary, you undermine it. You send a message that you feel guilty for protecting yourself, that your needs are an inconvenience. Stop saying sorry for respecting yourself. You don't owe anyone an apology for having standards, for guarding your time, for protecting your energy. Men don't apologize for this, and neither should you. The strength of your boundaries is what ultimately earns deep respect, not because you demand it, not because you plead for it, but because people recognize that you will not compromise on what matters most. Boundaries force others to step up, to either meet you at the level you've set or step out of your life entirely. And that's the beauty of it. Boundaries not only protect you, they filter out the people who were never meant to be in your life in the first place. Respect is never something that magically appears from others. It begins within. If you want people, especially men, to recognize your worth and treat you with dignity, You must first embody the very respect you seek. The way you view yourself, the way you carry yourself, and the way you speak to yourself all create a silent blueprint that others follow. When you hold yourself in high regard, you signal to the world that you are someone of value, someone who deserves to be taken seriously. On the other hand, when you doubt yourself, belittle yourself, or allow negative self-talk to define your identity, people will mirror that energy back to you. Every interaction you have is shaped by how you see yourself. If you walk into a room slouched, hesitant, unsure of your voice, others will treat you as though your presence doesn't carry weight. But if you walk in with posture, with certainty in your tone, and with an unshakable sense of worth, the entire atmosphere shifts. Men in particular respect women who exude self-respect because it shows discipline, strength, and an unwillingness to settle for less than they deserve. It communicates that you don't need external validation to know who you are, and that is an energy that commands attention without ever asking for it. Self-respect also manifests in the choices you make every day. It's in the way you maintain your personal standards, whether it's in your work ethic, your relationships, or your lifestyle. Do you keep your word to yourself, or do you constantly break promises you've made to your own well-being? Do you allow people who drain you to stay in your life simply because you fear being alone? Or do you walk away knowing that solitude is better than disrespect? These decisions may seem small in the moment, but collectively they define your character and broadcast to others how much you value yourself. A woman who respects herself will not chase, beg, or settle. She knows her worth is non-negotiable, and that knowledge alone sets her apart. It's important to understand that respecting yourself does not mean arrogance or superiority. True self-respect is quiet strength. It's the discipline to say no when something doesn't align with your values. It's the courage to walk away from someone who refuses to treat you the way you deserve. It's the wisdom to protect your time, your mind, and your body, because you know they are not to be carelessly given away. When men see a woman living with that kind of conviction, they are forced to adjust their behavior accordingly. Respect is not demanded, it is inspired by the standard you live by. Consider how often women are taught to prioritize pleasing others over honoring themselves. From a young age, many are conditioned to put everyone else first, to avoid conflict, and to sacrifice their needs for harmony. While kindness and compassion are powerful qualities, without self-respect, they become dangerous. They turn into people-pleasing behaviors that invite disrespect, manipulation, and disappointment. By reclaiming self-respect, you send the message that kindness is your choice, not your obligation, and that your generosity cannot be exploited. This strength makes people, especially men, treat you differently because they know you cannot be swayed by flattery or intimidated by disapproval. Self-respect also changes how you communicate. The words you use, the tone you choose, the confidence in your delivery, all of these are influenced by how much you value yourself. A woman who respects herself doesn't shrink her voice to make others comfortable, nor does she over-explain to justify her choices. She speaks with clarity, she sets her boundaries without apology, and she trusts that her perspective is worth being heard. Men respect that kind of energy because it radiates authority without aggression. It's the presence of someone who knows who she is and refuses to negotiate her worth. The bottom line is that if you do not respect yourself, no one else will. You cannot teach others to value you more than you value yourself. Respect begins with the way you treat your own body, your own mind, and your own spirit. When you carry yourself with dignity, others are compelled to rise to that standard or step aside. Self-respect is not just the foundation of how others see you, it is the lens through which the entire world interacts with you, and once you master it, you'll notice that men and everyone else start to treat you with the seriousness you have always deserved. One of the most damaging choices you can make in life is trading authenticity for approval. When you live for the validation of others, you give away your power and silence the very essence of who you are. Approval is fleeting and conditional. It shifts depending on who you're around, what they want from you, and what benefits them in the moment. Authenticity, on the other hand, is solid, unshakable, and rooted in truth. Men and people in general may be entertained by someone who bends themselves to please, but they respect the woman who refuses to compromise her identity for anyone's acceptance. It starts with understanding the difference between adapting and abandoning yourself. We all adjust slightly in different environments, but the problem arises when you start hiding parts of yourself out of fear that they won't be liked. Maybe you silence your opinions in conversations because you don't want to sound too bold. Maybe you laugh at jokes that actually offend you because you don't want to be labeled as difficult. Or maybe you agree to things you don't want to do because you crave belonging. Each time you do this, you chip away at your authenticity, and over time, you lose sight of who you are. Approval becomes your currency, but the cost is your self-respect. Authenticity commands respect because it is rare. So many people live behind masks, performing roles they believe others will applaud, that when someone shows up unapologetically themselves, it's magnetic. Men, in particular, respect women who are real because it signals courage. It takes bravery to say, "This is who I am, and I don't need you to like me to keep being me." That level of confidence is powerful, and it disarms those who try to control or manipulate. The moment you stop seeking validation, you gain leverage in every interaction because you're no longer playing by someone else's rules. Living authentically also filters your relationships in the best possible way. When you are yourself without pretense, the wrong people fall away. The ones who are only around because of what you gave them, the flattery, the compliance, the endless yeses will disappear, and that is a gift because it makes space for people who genuinely value you for you. Approval, seeking attracts shallow connections, but authenticity attracts respect and loyalty. It ensures that when someone chooses to stay in your life, they're staying for the real you, not a version of you created to earn their acceptance. There's also a unique strength that comes from standing firm in your values even when they aren't popular. The world constantly pressures you to conform, to fit into molds that feel safe and acceptable. But conformity doesn't inspire respect, it inspires forgettability. Think of the people you admire most. Chances are they didn't get there by chasing approval. They stood out because they were willing to go against the grain, to voice truths others were too afraid to say, and to live by their principles no matter the cost. That is the kind of authenticity that commands deep, lasting respect. The trap of approval seeking is that it feels good in the moment. Someone praises you, validates you, or gives you the nod of acceptance, and for a while you feel worthy. But when that approval fades, as it always does, you're left scrambling for the next hit, adjusting yourself yet again to win someone else's favor. It becomes a cycle that erodes your confidence. Authenticity breaks that cycle. When you no longer need the applause, you're free. You don't bend for approval, you don't shrink for acceptance, and you don't apologize for being exactly who you are. That kind of freedom is rare, and it commands respect because people can sense when someone is living fully aligned with themselves. At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, do you want to be liked for a version of you that isn't real, or respected for the truth of who you are? Approval will always keep you chasing, but authenticity will keep you grounded. Men deeply respect women who stand in their truth, who are clear about who they are, and who never trade that for a fleeting nod of acceptance. Authenticity is your greatest form of strength, and once you embrace it, you no longer need approval from anyone because you already carry the only validation that matters, your own. The ability to control your emotions is one of the most powerful traits you can develop because emotions, while deeply human, can be easily used against you if you allow them to run unchecked. In every interaction, whether personal or professional, the person who keeps their composure holds the power. Losing control of your emotions hands that power away because it signals that someone else can dictate your reactions. Men respect women who master their emotions not because they are emotionless, but because they have the discipline to respond rather than react, to choose clarity over chaos, and to maintain self-possession even under pressure. Think about moments when someone intentionally tries to provoke you. Maybe it's a dismissive comment, a sarcastic remark, or an act of disrespect designed to test your limits. The natural impulse is to react with anger, frustration, or defensiveness. But when you do, you've played directly into their hands. They've succeeded in controlling you by triggering a predictable response. Now imagine instead pausing, breathing, and choosing not to give them the reaction they expect. You stay calm, composed, and unshaken. That moment communicates strength louder than any outburst ever could. People quickly learn that they cannot manipulate or diminish someone who refuses to be emotionally hijacked. Controlling your emotions doesn't mean suppressing them or pretending they don't exist. It means recognizing them, acknowledging them, and then deciding how you want to act despite them. Anger, sadness, disappointment, these are valid feelings, but when you let them dictate your behavior, they end up dictating your life. Discipline is what separates emotional awareness from emotional chaos. Men respect a woman who can feel deeply but also think clearly, someone who does not let temporary emotions cause permanent damage to her dignity or decision making. Another aspect of emotional control is how it allows you to maintain your standards even in high-stakes situations. For example, in relationships, it's easy to let affection cloud judgment, to excuse behavior you know crosses your boundaries simply because you don't want to lose someone. That's emotion running the show. But when you have control, you don't let feelings override facts. You see behavior for what it is, and you respond accordingly. That kind of self-discipline earns respect because it shows you cannot be blinded by attachment or desperation. Men notice when a woman doesn't let love, attraction, or fear of being alone make her compromise her worth. Emotional control is also evident in communication. When you can express yourself without resorting to yelling, pleading, or over-explaining, you establish authority. People listen differently to someone who speaks with calm confidence than to someone who spirals into emotional turbulence. Even in conflict, when you remain measured, you send the message that you are grounded, that you cannot be shaken into saying or doing something you'll later regret. This ability makes people take you more seriously because they know they're dealing with someone who is not swayed by the storm of the moment. What's critical to understand is that people respect consistency, and consistency is impossible without emotional control. If your reactions are unpredictable, calm one moment, explosive the next, people won't know how to treat you, and over time, they may avoid trusting or respecting you at all. But when you consistently show steadiness, even in difficulty, you build a reputation for strength. Men in particular admire women who can handle pressure with grace because it shows leadership, maturity, and resilience. The world is full of tests designed to shake you: criticism, rejection, provocation, and disappointment. You can't control these external forces, but you can control your internal response. That control is what defines your power. It's what allows you to remain true to your standards, to keep your dignity intact, and to communicate without losing credibility. Emotional mastery doesn't mean shutting down. It means staying present and strong enough to direct your energy wisely. When you control your emotions, you prove that you cannot be manipulated or broken, and that level of self-calm is something that earns lasting respect. One of the most powerful ways to show strength and self-respect is by walking away when respect is not given. Too many people stay in situations, relationships, or environments that diminish them because they fear loss, rejection, or loneliness. But what you tolerate will always continue, and every time you allow someone to treat you beneath your worth, you reinforce the idea that their behavior is acceptable. The truth is, you cannot force anyone to respect you, but you can choose whether or not you remain where respect is absent. That choice is where your power lies, and it is often the very thing that earns more respect than anything you could say or demand. Walking away is not about anger or revenge, it's about clarity. It is the recognition that your value does not decrease because someone else refuses to acknowledge it. It's the decision to protect your dignity rather than beg for validation. Men especially respect women who have the courage to walk away because it shows independence, strength, and self-worth that is not dependent on external approval. When you stay where you are undervalued, you signal desperation, but when you leave, you signal confidence. You show that your presence is a privilege, not a consolation prize. Consider how many times people compromise their standards out of fear of being alone. They excuse disrespectful behavior, tolerate inconsistency, or overlook red flags because the thought of walking away feels unbearable. Yet every time you stay in a situation like this, you drain your own energy and erode your self-respect. Walking away is hard because it feels like loss, but in reality it is gain. The gain of your peace, your power, and your freedom. It opens the door to healthier connections and environments that align with your worth. Walking away also shifts dynamics instantly. When you remain in a space where you're mistreated, the other person learns that they can act however they want without consequence, but when you leave, you establish a boundary they cannot ignore. It forces them to reconsider their behavior and the value of your presence. Sometimes people only realize the weight of your worth when it's no longer accessible. Whether they change or not is irrelevant. What matters is that you did not compromise your dignity in the process. That act alone earns respect, even if it comes belatedly. There is also a discipline in walking away that signals strength to others. It's easy to leave when things are obviously toxic, but harder when the disrespect is subtle, when it comes in the form of dismissive remarks, small betrayals, or lack of appreciation. Yet those are the very moments where your decision carries the most weight. By refusing to normalize even small acts of disrespect, you set a higher standard not only for others but also for yourself. Every time you walk away from less than you deserve, you strengthen the belief within yourself that your worth is non-negotiable. Walking away doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about yourself to choose peace over chaos, dignity over disrespect, and self-respect over approval. People may call it harsh, but it is actually one of the purest forms of self-love. Men respect women who don't cling out of fear, but move forward with courage. That kind of strength cannot be ignored because it reflects independence and emotional maturity. At its core, walking away is about trust, trusting that what you lose by leaving will be replaced with something better, trusting that your worth does not depend on who chooses to see it, and trusting yourself enough to let go when staying no longer honors you. The ability to walk away is what separates those who are respected from those who are taken for granted. When you refuse to settle for anything less than respect, you show the world that your dignity is not negotiable, and that unshakable strength is what makes people admire and respect you even more.